Thank you, Victor. And hello, everyone. Heartfelt thanks to all of you intrepid educators. You're living examples of the belief that education is a lifelong process and that learning comes from all sorts of sources. This is something that I didn't have as a child growing up in Chicago right out of a World War II internment camp. My first week of second grade at Gowdy Grammar School in Chicago, Illinois, I was asked where I had come from. Camp, I said. Girl Scout camp? Asked Betsy O'Reilly, who became my best friend. So now, let me start at the beginning. My name is Shirley Sadayo Nikki Nojima Louis. It sometimes feels like a string of aliases. Shirley because my immigrant mother named me after Shirley Temple, the most popular child movie star of the 1930s. Sadayo because that's my Japanese name. Don't ask me what it means. I've never seen the actual Japanese characters for that name, so I'm not really able to identify its meaning. I'm sure it means something splendid, though. After all, I'm a child named after Shirley Temple. Nojima, because it's my father's family name, a samurai family from the region of Tokyo. And Nikki because finally in fourth grade, when all of my school buddies were calling each other nicknames, I got the name of Nikojima after Nojima, and which eventually ended up being Nikki, something my mother could finally pronounce. So I've been Nikki for a very long time, and it's my professional writing name. Now, Louis is my married name, and that, like so many American immigrant stories, is based on a mistake. When the immigration officer asked Grandpa Lou from China what his name was, he heard it as Louis. So there you go. Another immigrant story and a new identity. But that's the Chinese American side of my family, another story. Days of spacious dreams, I sailed for America, overblown with hope, overblown with hope. Those are the words by a Japanese poet that represent the American dream of countless immigrants. American dreams that sometimes turned into American nightmares. My family's stories and the stories of about 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry are about American dreams and nightmares and American dreams lost and found. As an oral historian, playwright, and producer, I create living history presentations for the New Mexico Japanese American Citizens League, using oral history and multimedia readers' theater techniques to portray themes of social justice, the civil rights movement, peace, and the women's movement, and especially the Japanese American experience. So back to the beginning, as I said, I was born in Seattle, Washington on December 7th, 1937, the only child of immigrant parents from Japan. My mother and father had lived in the United States for years, but Asian exclusion laws had prevented them from becoming American citizens. On December 7th, 1941, the news came over the radio. The Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor. What is Parahaba? My mother said. Later that day, after the birthday guests had left and we were preparing for bed, the doorbell chimed. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Knocking, louder knocking, finally pounding. Daddy's in the bathroom. I am in the kitchen in my jammies, licking Neapolitan ice cream off of a spoon. The kitchen door swings open. A pink-faced man leans in. "What have we here?" he says, and he takes off his hat. His hair is the color of carrots. He walks in, opens the room closet, the pantry door, even the tiny door that holds the ironing board. And he goes out on the porch, leaving the back door wide open. Ooh, it's cold. When he comes back, he wipes his feet on the welcome mat. "Cute baby," he tells Mama. "I'm 4, I say." The man laughs, and he sounds nice. Another man is also in the house. He bangs on the bathroom door and talks in a loud voice. The toilet flushes, but Daddy doesn't come out. The other man is older than the one with carrot hair. He doesn't take off his brown hat. "Go around the side," he tells the younger man. "Check windows." Mommy says, "Shoichi, Shoichi." She talks to the bathroom door. "There are giants in our house." Daddy comes out of the bathroom. When he sees me, he puts a smile on his face. Mr. Brown Hat puts bracelets on him, and he and the carrot-haired man take my daddy away. We didn't hear from my father for almost a year. By that time, my mother and I, our friends and neighbors in Seattle, were in Camp Minidoka, in the lava lands of central Idaho. When at last we began hearing from him, my father was in a place called Santa Fe. His letters arrived in envelopes marked enemy, alien, mail. And they were censored. Sometimes whole columns of Japanese characters would be cut out of the thin sheets of letter paper. What I remember most about those days was sitting on the steps of my barracks, opening gift packages stamped enemy, alien, mail from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Inside would be Tootsie Rolls and Lifesavers and juicy fruit chewing gum. But best of all, Pueblo pottery and beaded jewelry, or one time, a little wooden Kachina doll. To me, New Mexico was a magical place. In my teaching, I use oral histories and multimedia readers' theater techniques, as I've told you in my introduction. To me, they create a tapestry of memories of the Japanese-American experience. For my first oral history play called Breaking the Silence, which was written in 1985, the author of Farewell to Manzanar, which many of you know and teach in your classes, Jean Wachowski Houston, gave me permission to use scenes from her book. This is a memoir, one of the first memoirs written by Jean, of her incarceration in Manzanar, high in the Sierra Nevadas, made famous by Ansel Adams and his iconic photographs. One scene in Farewell to Manzanar resonated with me years later when I visited the National Archives to look into my father's file. Like my dad, Jean Wachowski Houston's immigrant father had been picked up by the FBI almost immediately after the attack on Pearl Harbor and was taken to an army camp for interrogation. Who do you want to win the war? Who do you want to win the war? The interrogator repeatedly asked. As reported in my father's file, after repeated questioning, He answered, "Japan is my country, but America is my daughter's country. I am sure America will win." I think it was my reply that kept my father incarcerated for almost a year after the war ended. The surrender was announced on August 15th, 1945, yet my father wasn't released from the Santa Fe internment camp until June of 1946. That and the fact that my father's family were in Japan, and my grandfather was a judge, and my uncles members of the Japanese Imperial Navy. In Farewell to Manzanar, the angry father's reply to his interrogator was, Who do you want to win this war? Who do you want to win this war? When you're finally, Jean's father says, when your mother and father are having a fight, do you want them to kill each other, or do you just want them to stop fighting? When you walk through the National Archives in Washington, D.C., far above your head are carved the words from Shakespeare's The Tempest. What's past is prologue. Another quote that's brought to mind is the philosopher George Santayana's reminder that those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. So now I've been asked to tell you a little bit about Lordsburg, you teachers here in Las Cruces, a topic that's covered in this publication, Confinement in the Land of Enchantment, which Victor Yamada has told you about. Incidentally, this fall, the JCL players will be adapting stories from this book for a Reader's Theater program that will tour New Mexico. Now, Lordsburg was the first camp that my dad was sent to after the interrogation he had in Missoula, Montana, at an Army fort. Molly Pressler, who is the unofficial curator of the Lordsburg Museum, has a bunch of 3x5 cards that she carries in a plastic cake box whenever she gives a talk on Lordsburg. At one talk in 2012 at the New Mexico History Museum in Santa Fe, Molly asked if anybody in the audience knew of anyone who had been in Lordsburg. I raised my hand and said, Shoichi Nojima. She reached in her plastic cake box and took out one stack out of several alphabetically arranged stacks of 3x5 cards. She removed the rubber band and came up with my father's card, his name, his number, the date he had arrived, and the fact that he had $1 in his sweater pocket, the sweater that he had been wearing when he had been removed from our home on my 4th birthday, 70 plus years earlier. In the summer of 1943, the Issei of Lordsburg were transferred to other camps, including Santa Fe. In 1944, Lordsburg imprisoned Italian and German POWs, which may have led to the assumption, still held today, that the Issei men who were held there earlier had been enemy Japanese soldiers captured in Japan. So the reason I'm 80 years old and I'm still on the road and I'm still at this is because I'm highly conscious of the fact that I'm the last generation alive that experienced the camp. And to those to whom I present these stories, I would like you to meet somebody through direct contact or through our videos, through your becoming acquainted with Kiku Kato in her 90s, and others that are still with us, that this story is very much an American story. It's a story that is your story as well, and it's a story about vigilance, about compassion, and about courage. Thank you very much.